Magnify the Maker podcast. I'm your host, Maddie Miller. I just realized there's so many M's in that, like Magnify the Maker, MTM, and then my initials is MRM. That was like completely unplanned. I did not plan that, but that's kind of cool that the M's are like so prominent. Anyways, I'm happy that you're here. Very, very happy that you're here because if you're open to it and if you want, we have the chance to hear from God directly with what he wants to speak to you. Two things that we just need to make sure that we give him is our availability and our openness, making sure that whatever we hear, it's not, just hearing because you kind of don't want to hear the other things that he's telling you or your own understanding. That's one thing that I got caught up in, I think, is relying on my own understanding when he would speak to me and when he would speak truth and point things out in my life that maybe I needed to work on, or maybe he just wanted to speak to me and show me his heart. But because I was relying on my own understanding, I couldn't fully understand and hear all he had to say. And I promise you that once you give him that full availability and that full openness, and relying on his understanding of what is going on, why he wants to say what he's saying, you're going to be able, I'm like all over the place already, but you're going to be able to kind of reap that full reward of what he is saying, versus if you're kind of half listening, you're going to understand it half. It's like, this reminds me of my grandpa and my grandma, and they're watching this right now and they're probably laughing. They're going to laugh, but my grandma always complains that my grandpa doesn't hear anything that she says, and so he has to turn his hearing aids up and really fully listen. And sometimes, he'll say, huh? We're like, yeah, okay, but she's like, does he really hear me? And I feel like that's kind of like God to his children. Like, do they really hear me? You have to turn your hearing aid up to full volume, full availability to hear what the other person has to say. And that's so much like us and our Father. It's like selective hearing. It's like we select what we want to hear, and then we kind of disregard things that we don't want to hear and all that. And sometimes that's self-benefit. We're going to have the opportunity to hear from God and also develop a new practice that you can implement in your life. Maybe you've already done this, I don't know, but it's a really amazing practice that you can implement and give God the time to really speak to you and change your lifestyle. Before we get into all of that, I just want to send a friendly reminder out that there is still the GoFundMe for Charity Water. So if you are interested in donating this season to Charity Water, I would go in the description box, click it, and it'll take you to the place where you can donate directly to Charity Water through the GoFundMe. And then after this season, all proceeds will go to that charity, because that is one thing that he has really called me to do, not just for this podcast, but also in my personal life, is to be more generous. And even though I may have $5 and not 50 or 500 and all this, it doesn't mean that he can't multiply that. I think that's what I've been really learning in my life right now, is just the small amounts can really amount to something big. He can use that. You're giving him that, even if it's a little bit, you're giving him that access point to reach others through what you're giving. And so generosity is something that is so special, and I love generosity so much. It fuels me on a different level. It really does. I find that when I'm more generous and when I'm more giving, the getting part isn't as greedy. You don't have that sense of greedy. Greed cannot really affect you if you do have that generous spirit, that giving spirit, because that's literally what it's all about. It's about paying it forward and supporting others with what God gives us and the gifts that he gives us. So if you are wanting to do that, you can go to the description box. Charity water is amazing, and I think everybody deserves water, and it's just a place where you can use your gifts and give to charity, because I think that the one thing that was kind of preventing me from donating to charities and stuff like that in the past was there's so many to choose from. How could I possibly? And also, if you're like an amazing, generous person, it's like, okay, let me give to all of them. You don't have to pick. But I just felt like this, like it was almost like it was holding me back with, oh, I have to figure out the perfect charity to donate to. Like there's so many good causes, but what's going to be my cause that I can really like invest in and stuff? And I think that's another limit that we place on the generosity aspect of it all, is like there's just so many opportunities with it. Like, how could I pick? That's what I was struggling with. And so I just wanted to make it a little bit more easy for those that are in the same boat as me, or were in the same boat as me. If we can give $7,000 at the end of the season ends April 20th, to charity water. So that's the goal. Even $5, $1, whatever you can give will really help propel that goal. So that's there. Now we can get into the actual episode. So I want to talk about storing up not only treasures, but just storing things up in your heart. Like that's the title of this episode, is storing up in the heart. What does that mean? Like, I feel like it's very complex when you think about it, because it's like there's so much we unintentionally store up in our heart. I mean, what music we listen to, what we see, what our eyes and our ears kind of infiltrate into our hearts. What are we surrounded by? Who are our friends what are they speaking to us? What is our family speaking to us? And are we storing that up in our heart? There's one episode that I did last season that was basically spiritual treasure, and I go into a little bit more about the heart. But this episode is going to be specifically based on putting wisdom in the heart and what that means to store up things. When I think about storing up things, I'll tell you kind of like a funny story. I think everybody has had some crazy experience from the year 2020. I feel like when I say that year, it's like, oh, it's like an automatic, like, oh yeah, I know. Like if you've lived through 2020, which is just so crazy that I'm going to have to tell my kids and my grandkids about 2020. And like, that's just crazy. But I remember the toilet paper pandemic. I mean, like, yes, it was a COVID, like, global illness pandemic, but it was a toilet paper pandemic. I remember being on, like, social media and just this unneeded freak out of we need to store everything up. We need to store toilet paper up. We need to make sure that we're good for our food and our resources, that if the stores close and if worst comes to worst, we'll be prepared and we'll have a surplus amount of things to help us live. Toilet paper, like that's I think why God made leaves, so that if worst comes to worst, at least we have the leaves. But we were obsessed with toilet paper. I just, it's crazy. Like I remember going through the stores and they'd be gone. Like I have pictures of it, I have videos of it, and that's just, it just amazes me that like we can really let, I'm not saying that that's greed, because it's also being smart and preparing, but we can let that turn into greed, because there could be, fights. Oh, another person has toilet paper. She has 5 things of toilet paper. She doesn't need 5 and I have none. And then you like go and why does this always get like gross? I feel like I'm always taking it to like such a far level. I was going to say then like you kill that person because you just want one thing of toilet paper. I don't know. I'm so sorry about that. You it can start fights. It can start anguish and all of this greediness negative to that of the storing ups. I remember literally having to use 2 things of toilet paper. Like the amount of toilet paper that you were to be used, usually it's just like, I don't really care. I can use the whole roll if need be. But in that time, it was like, you're maxing out at 2. Like, you better be considerate and use one little square of toilet paper. And if not, like, we are going to run out and we're going to have to use leaves to wipe. And that's not pleasant, especially because who wants to wipe with dry, crumbly leaves? Globally, it was this lack of abundance that caused us that anxiety and this need to store up. And I think with God, when you want to store up wisdom in your heart and store up all things good and all things perfect and pure, there's a different connotation to it. It's based upon you want an abundant life. That even when, in the pandemic, when everybody was surging the toilet paper aisle, like they wanted an abundance of toilet paper. It's this abundance issue that we have. And when Jesus says, come to me and you'll never be thirsty again, he means one sip and you already automatically have this abundant life. No need to search, no need to have this anxiety that you need more and more and more. See, that's what the world does. So we're going to be heavily focusing on Proverbs this season. I'll just go ahead and read Proverbs 1. It's kind of a longer chapter, so I encourage you to get your Bible out and be interactive in this. I'll kind of stop in some parts and talk and explain and just point out anything that God is really putting on in my heart to say. So it says, these are the Proverbs of Solomon, David's son, king of Israel. Their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, to help them do what is right, just, and fair. These proverbs will give insight to the simple, knowledge and discernment to the young. Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. Let those with understanding receive guidance by exploring the meaning in these proverbs and parables, the words of the wise and their riddles. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. So just one thing that I want to point out is, like, the hearing what you want to hear, it's basically calling it out. Like, fools despise wisdom and discipline because it's convicting. It's like a sword. Jesus sometimes will, and I use this as like an analogy, like he'll sometimes pierce your heart and he'll cut. So then he can take something out and show you and reveal it so he can close your heart and perfect your heart. And this is a large part of the conviction feeling of, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to feel like I'm doing something wrong or feeling like my ways are not right or not as fruitful as somebody else's ways. But that is what it takes to receive that wisdom and that discipline, is the instruction. And the fear of the Lord is the foundation to that. The fear of the Lord, you cannot have wisdom without the fear of the Lord. Later, we'll look at a verse that says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning to all wisdom. You have to have that. Verse 8 goes on to say, my child, listen when your father corrects you. Don't neglect your mother's instructions. What you learn from them will crown you with grace and be a chain of honor around your neck. My child, if sinners entice you, turn your back on them. They may say, come and join us. Let's hide and kill someone, just for fun. Let's ambush the innocent. Let's swallow them alive like the grave. Let's swallow them whole like those who go down to the pit of death. Think of all the great things we'll get. We will fill our horses with all the stuff we will take. Come, throw in your loot with us, and we'll share the loot. My child, don't go along with them. Stay far away from their paths. They rush to commit evil deeds. They hurry to commit murder. If a bird sees a trap being set, it knows to stay away. But these people set an ambush for themselves. They are trying to get themselves killed. Such is the fate of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. So this correlates to exactly what I was saying before. And the root of it is that money, like hungry spirit of more and more and more can easily turn into greed. Like with the pandemic toilet paper example, or like when things are getting really tough and when there's scarcity involved, it's this, I will kill to get it. I don't care about somebody else. I don't care about anything but to get it. And that spirit of rush, that spirit of selfishness. Verse 17 is profound because it says, if a bird sees a trap being set, it knows to stay away. But we're not birds. We see a trap and it can be disguised as something super pretty, and we can just walk and be blindly to it. You know, we can walk into the trap blindly, maybe because there's this like aura of love around the trap. Maybe there's this aura of, oh, it looks nice, you know, like how Adam and Eve, they bit the apple because it looked appealing, you know, like things can look really, really appealing, like how these people were like, think of all the great things we'll get. We'll fill our horses with all the stuff we will take. Like, come and throw in your loot. We'll share it. It's almost like we're going to do a good thing with it. Sorry. You know, we'll share it. It'll be in abundance, and we'll be able to split it all. But it's like, that is a complete trap because of that in the beginning of it all, before that plan even carried out. It was the intention, oh my gosh, before that was set. So there has to be a goal and intention behind a plan, you know. Then it talks about wisdom and how it shouts in the streets. Like it cannot be quiet, and it doesn't have this spirit of secrecy. It doesn't have this spirit of doing things promiscuous or rush or anything like that. And also, it doesn't rob you of life. All of the intentions that will rob you of life does lie in a spirit of rush, in a spirit of desperation. But in wisdom, you just got to tune your ears to hear it, because it's shouting. Like it's so prevalent. Like it's, once you open your ears to it and once you tune your ears to wisdom, you can't miss it. You can't not hear it. It says, wisdom shouts in the streets. She cries out in the public square. She calls to the crowds among the main street. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. To these gathered in front of the city gate. How long, you simpletons, will you insist on being simple-minded? How long will you mockers relish in your mocking? How long will you fools hate knowledge? Come and listen to my counsel. I'll share my heart with you and make you wise. I called you so often, but you wouldn't come. I reached out to you, but you paid no attention. You ignored my advice and rejected the correction I offered. So I will laugh when you are in trouble. I will mock you when disaster overtakes you, when calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster engulfs you like a cyclone, and anguish and distress overwhelm you. When they cry for help, I will not answer. Though they anxiously search for me, they will not find me, for they hated knowledge and chose not to fear the Lord. Just pausing for 1 minute, not to go over and over about it, but like knowledge, accepting knowledge, and choosing to fear the Lord is the very foundation to tune your ears. So how you tune your ears to hear is you fear God and you accept knowledge and you accept that conviction and you move forward and you change some things. That goes back to the changing of your lifestyle. You know, like we're made on this earth to live a certain way and then change it. It's how we evolve, and we keep evolving. Then it goes to say, they rejected my advice and paid no attention when I corrected them. Therefore, they will eat the bitter fruit of living their own way, choking on their own schemes. For simpletons turn away from me to death. Fools are destroyed by their own complicity. But all who listen to me will live in peace, untroubled by fear of harm. So fools are destroyed by their own complicity. That just makes me think about the times that I was complicit and I wasn't evolving in my life and I was comfortable, you know? So that changing of being open and tuning your ears for God is going to propel you into a new level, into a new lifestyle, a better lifestyle, more suitable for you. There's a surplus amount of things that God will speak to you. It's like never ending. What you learn about God and what you learn about yourself, what he points out to you, what he is able to speak to you is never ending. And so that goes into that complicity standpoint of if you are kind of closing your ears, you're not able to hear and grow, and you are complicit. So that's that. I didn't really break it down a whole lot because I want this Proverbs to be open for your interpretation, you know. So study it this week, look at it, and really highlight and ask God what he wants you to get from this proverb. In order to tune our ears, in order to turn our earpieces up, our hearing aids up, we have to have that desire to hear. Like, for instance, my grandpa, if he doesn't have a desire to hear, or if it's too loud for him, he might turn his hearing aids down, you know? And that's the same thing with like anybody. Even when you don't have hearing aids, in your heart, you kind of tune that down. But I encourage you to tune your hearing aid up in the silence, and in that meditation of solitude and silence. We're able to turn that up because we trust that's not going to be too loud, you know? It's not going to be like we set that tone. So I hope that Proverbs 1 was a good tone setting for this. And silence is how we are able to trust that it's not going to like startle you, you know? We're able to turn up our hearing aid when we are in silence versus when we're in church and it's like a very loud setting. We might tune it a little bit down. When we're involved with our friends, we might tune it a little bit down, meaning like we might tune what God has to say down a little bit. But in solitude, and that's why I love meditation so much, because it gives me an area to where I can be content in the silence. So that's what we're going to do now. Basically, this practice is called Lucio Divina, and it is a sacred reading practice to where somebody will say, or even like if you just listen to the Bible, there's like a audio portion that you can do in certain Bibles. They'll give you the option to just listen to it, and basically you listen to it a repeated amount of times. Usually it's 4, and there's 4 steps in Lucio Divina, which one is just reading it and hearing it, listening to the context of it, trying to understand what the selective verse is saying. Usually the passage is like 5 to 9 verses, and that can obviously vary. But the first time that you listen to it, it's just you listening for context, trying to understand it and all that. The second time you listen to it is basically you focusing on a word or a phrase that is really highlighted to you. In this time, you kind of have an idea of what is happening, and it's a very meditative practice, so you'll be closing your eyes and you will then start to visualize what is going on. So you'll kind of like naturally try to visualize what the area is around you, where the setting is taking place, and what God is showing you in this. And just be open for God to take your mind to this place. And any practice that you do with God should open in prayer. So ask Him beforehand. Maybe pause this video to let the Holy Spirit come. Ask Him that He reveals Himself to you in this discipline and reveal what is in your heart, what He wants to speak to you. So personally do that. We will open up with a prayer, but that is just a general prayer. So individually, I encourage you to pray and just ask Him. And then the third is just like literally like having a conversation with God. So this is where you ask Him questions. This third time that we read the passage, ask Him, like, look in your meditation, what you are seeing, see Jesus, and what is He doing? This is a time to ask Him what you need to about this passage, specifically in what you are seeing. Maybe if you're seeing something that you're like, why am I seeing this? Or what is this verse mean? Why is this emphasized so much? This is a place where you can ask Him. Or even just thank Him that He showed you what He showed you, or thank Him that what you see in this verse is really profound. And it's a really cool practice because it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody's going to see a different thing. Everybody is going to ask different questions and thank God for a different reason, you know? So that's the third time that we'll read it. And then the fourth time is you're going to rest and act upon this. So this is kind of where you hear God, where you finally, like you ask for the third time, right? But then the fourth time that you hear the passage is when you just quiet your heart, rest, and be open to what He has to say. And then that leads into that commitment part of it, to commit to what He is saying. Maybe He's asking you to obey something, or whatever it may be. It can be different for everybody, but it's basically like the next steps. And this practice will really get you in that discipline of taking your life for what it is now, to evolve it and to change that lifestyle for the better. So that is Lucio Divina. It's just a sacred reading practice. And so now I'm going to pray and we'll go through this. And if you're not comfortable with this, by all means, pause it. It's definitely a practice for people that are a little bit more experienced in hearing God and what His word is, because of that fifth step. That's the commitment. Maybe that's like you are prone to selective hear God, and that can result in maybe a misconstrued idea of who God is, because it can get kind of sticky when you think you know what God says, but it's kind of constructed on your own understanding, and then you commit to something that God never wanted you to commit To Lord Jesus, as we look at Proverbs 1:15 through 23 with a emphasized lens to hear you and to tune our ears to you, Lord, I just pray that you open up our hearts to what you have to say to us individually. I pray that you speak and you guide us, and you also convict us of if we are relying on our own understanding. I just pray that we used Proverbs 1 to set the tone for this practice. I pray that in the meditation of our hearts and the meditation of what we are doing in this podcast, what our works are, what fruit we are producing, that it is pleasing to you. And I pray that we use Proverbs 1:15 through 23, whatever it reveals to us, whatever you are speaking to our hearts, that it is pleasing and acceptable on the altar of your sacrifice and your just relentless dedication to us. I pray that we will be able to use what you are speaking to us. Will we be able to use your word so that it can propel us to keep on giving to you and to keep on obeying your commands, Lord. In Jesus' name, I pray this. Amen. Yeah, if you'll just keep your eyes closed and just kind of calm yourself. This is going to be a slower pace, and I recommend that if you're driving, you kind of pause this and wait. But just close your eyes and start to relax. And if you do need to use Proverbs 1, pause this video and look at Proverbs 1 again to kind of set the tone and calm your heart into this practice. The easing of the heart is huge. I invite you to close your eyes and calm your heart. Calm all of your thoughts that are infiltrating your mind. Breathe in and breathe out. Lay all of your worries and everything that has happened before. Lay it all down and be open to receive what God has to point out to you, what God has to say to you. Calm your brain. Listen to your breath. And try to understand the concept of what I will be saying. My child, don't go along with them. Stay far away from their paths. They rush to commit evil deeds. They hurry to commit murder. If a bird sees a trap being set, it knows to stay away. But these people set an ambush for themselves. They are trying to get themselves killed. Such is the fate of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. Wisdom shouts in the streets. She cries out in the public square. She calls to the crowds along the main street, to those gathered in front of the city gate. How long, you simpletons, will you insist on being simple-minded? How long will you mockers relish in mocking? How long will you fools hate knowledge? Come and listen to my counsel. I'll share my heart with you and make you wise. So now that we know the concept and we have an understanding of these verses, as I say this again, be open to receiving any visuals that God is giving you. Focus on something that is profound to you, what verse is really sticking out to you, and explore that. My child, don't go along with them. Stay far away from their paths. They rush to commit evil deeds. They hurry to commit murder. If a bird sees a trap being set, it knows to stay away. But these people set an ambush for themselves. They are trying to get themselves killed. Such is the fate of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. Wisdom shouts in the streets. She cries out in the public square. She calls to the crowds along the main street, to those gathered in front of the city gate. How long, you simpletons, will you insist on being simple-minded? How long will you mockers relish in your mocking? How long will you fools hate knowledge? Come and listen to my counsel. I'll share my heart with you and make you wise. What's God speaking to you? Where are you? This is the time to ask God any questions that you may have. Explore, walk in your vision, be active in your vision. What are you doing? Walk to the thing that is concerning you. See Jesus right there with you and ask him. And this third time, be open to hearing what he has to say. My child, don't go along with them. Stay far away from their paths. They rush to commit evil deeds. They hurry to commit murder. If a bird sees a trap being set, it knows to stay away. But these people set an ambush for themselves. They are trying to get themselves killed. Such is the fate of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. Wisdom shouts in the streets. She cries out in the public square. She calls to the crowd along the main street, to those gathered in front of the city gate. How long, you simpletons, will you insist on being simple-minded? How long will you mockers relish your mocking? How long will you fools hate knowledge? Come and listen to my counsel. I'll share my heart with you and make you wise. Commit yourself to what God is speaking. What is it that he is speaking? And use this time as I read for the fourth time to declare a commitment to God. How is your life going to change? How does God want to take you? Where does God want to take you? My child, don't go along with them. Stay far from their paths. They rush to commit evil deeds. They hurry to commit murder. If a bird sees a trap being set, it knows to stay away. But these people set an ambush for themselves. They are trying to get themselves killed. Such is the fate of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. Wisdom shouts in the streets. She cries out to the public square. She calls to the crowds along the main street, to those gathered in front of the city gate. How long, you simpletons, will you insist on being simple-minded? How long will you mockers relish your mocking? How long will you fools hate knowledge? Come and listen to my counsel. I'll share my heart with you and make you wise. If you need more time, pause it and spend that time with God. I know that this was a little bit different than what I usually do, than what a podcast usually is. I know you probably didn't click this thinking that, oh, I'm going to do this meditation, and it may feel a little bit weird. If you haven't meditated before, that was probably really, really new to you and uncomfortable. So consider that your first, and it'll just get better as time goes on. When you keep on meditating, that uncomfortability will get better. I urge you to keep meditating with God. It has changed my life. God has taken me so many places, and to so many things, and he showed me so many things through meditation. It's an area where we can close our eyes and actually be able to see what is unseen. In this world that we can't see what is unseen, it's really hard to see God and to hear Jesus, what he truly wants to say to you. But meditation for me gives me a chance to close my eyes to see what is unseen, and for me to hold Jesus' hand and just let him take me anywhere that he wants to. So I hope that was good, and I hope that wasn't too awkward. You can tell me, honestly. If you never want me to do that ever again, you can tell me, and I won't. But I hope that God opened up a lot of doors for you, and I hope that you twist the knob and you open that door, and you take action today. And I just pray that you go throughout your week and you be open to what God has to show you and say to you. And I'm very hopeful and faithful that he will take you not only in your meditation, but also in real life to amazing places.
One for the body, two for the soul.